views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Open BxRx Remote, brought to you from my living workspace, Cherry Executive Suite. I'm Rhina Valentin, your host of Café con Leche every Friday. Here's what's coming up in today's show. Leading things off, we'll speak about racism as a public health issue, along with the health disparities we continue to witness during the COVID-19 pandemic, when we speak to New York State Nurses Association President Judy Sheridan-Gonzalez. After that, we'll talk with J.W. Walker, co-founder and organizer for this year's Queer Liberation March, focusing on Black lives, police brutality, and mass incarceration within this country. Then visual artist Musah Swallah joins the show to discuss his latest artwork reflecting Black Lives Matter and the overall protests. Later on in the show, Bobby C brings us an up-to-date with the latest headlines in the world of sports. And lastly, we speak to the founder of the Paige Fraser Foundation about her new short film campaign, Bent But Not Broken, in honor of Scoliosis Awareness Month. So, sit back y prepárate. All this and more is headed your way, because now we are officially open. Welcome back to Open. I'm Rhina Valentin, your host of Café con Leche for the next hour, encouraging you to get social with us online, that is. Tweet us at and follow us on Instagram at BronxNet TV and like us on Facebook at Open BronxNet Television. And of course, while you're there, follow me on Twitter, FB, Instagram, Insta Stories, and LinkedIn at Rhina Valentin. So systemic racism is America's biggest stain that has been killing Black and brown people for many years now, some fueled by police brutality, but ultimately it's a socioeconomic condition that continues to lead the health disparities amongst Black and brown people. And in the past few months, we've witnessed the killings of George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, amid a pandemic that continues to disproportionately affect community of color. And joining us to discuss being on the front line, we welcome emergency registered nurse at Montefiore and New York State Nurses Association President Judy Sheridan-Gonzalez. Hi, Judy.
Oh, hi. How are you?
I'm good. First and foremost, I want to thank you for your service.
Yeah, you really have to thank the thousands of members across the state, and particularly in the area of the epicenter of the pandemic, who sacrificed so much. There's just been such trauma visited upon the staff who's been caring for these patients, and in fact, deaths among our nurses as well.
You know, it was an honor meeting you on Sunday, watching you march on the front lines. As you saw, I opened up this segment addressing racism as a health crisis. Can you elaborate further on what it is that you've experienced throughout this pandemic, which I'm sure you're still dealing with, but now that I guess we could say we've already hit the curve and are coming down, what has that been like for you, and what have you noticed when it comes to our immediate community?
Well, you have to place it in the historical context of racism in healthcare and what we call the social determinants of health, which consist of racism, sexism, poverty, lack of education, lack of nutrition, lack of proper housing, lack of the ability to engage in exercise activities and leisure activities, and lack of space, particularly important during COVID. Our communities had the worst health indices in the Bronx. It's number 62 in the nation, in the state of New York, rather, in the counties of New York. And during COVID epidemic, it was the same statistics that we dealt with. The people who were most affected were people who had these comorbidities or conditions that rendered them less capable of surviving the virus. We saw it all the time. So we were inundated with this virus in the Bronx communities, in which certainly in the Bronx community that I live and work in, and in Corona, in the Far Rockaway, in all the areas where people of color live, because of all these conditions. For example, when we talk about social distancing and we talk about quarantining at home, this is not a possibility in people who live in cramped apartments. I remember the first, when it was very, very early on into the virus, I had a grandma who had COVID and had a mild pneumonia. And at that point, we weren't even meeting people with mild pneumonias because we were just so inundated. And we were talking to her about how to isolate herself at home. She was a grandma. She lived with her daughter and 6 grandchildren in a one-bedroom apartment, and she did the cooking. So what was she supposed to do to isolate herself at home? There was no way in the world she could do it. So, we don't have backyards and front porches and all kinds of activities that people can engage in to stay healthy. So not only were people affected because of the comorbidities, but also because of the lack of facilities and ability to do the things that they needed to do to mitigate the virus. So the rates of infection were incredibly high, not only among the patients, but also among the workers in our facilities. And of course, the death rates were extraordinarily high, and the statistics all bear to show that very well.
And so, based on everything that you've experienced and based on your knowledge and based on your experience, because you've been at this for 30 years, um, what do you think could have happened to make this more efficient?
Well, I mean, there's the long-term solution, which is to change the way healthcare is delivered. As an organization, we support healthcare for all, a single-payer system in the state and in the nation, where healthcare is not built around making profit, but around providing care equitably. And I'm talking about access, I'm talking about quality, I'm talking about all the supports that people need to stay healthy. But for the moment, and we're seeing a repeat of this, which is really frightening, the hospitals refuse to work with the unions, particularly our union, in talking about how to plan for the pandemic. We met with them early on in February and said, listen, we've got to prepare for this. We don't know what's going to happen. We have to get the equipment. We have to get the PPE, the protective equipment. We have to get the staff. We have to get the beds. We have to get all these things. And they refused to work with us. And then we were completely inundated with such unsafe situations and unsafe conditions that people have PTSD from caring for patients they couldn't possibly take care of. And that certainly resulted in very bad outcomes. Now, as we look forward, even though the news is quiet, we look forward, perhaps, I don't mean look forward in a good way, in a bad
Right.
way, to a potential surge. Same thing's happening. They're not prepared again. We're saying, let's meet, let's talk, let's figure this out, let's prepare. Uh, again, they're just looking at how to make a dollar, how to make a profit.
So, where are we now in this whole, I guess, attempt to reform healthcare as well? Because basically, what you're saying is that um, there's really no change, and there hasn't been change, and from what we observed, right? Because we're being informed through news and media and so forth. You guys weren't equipped to even handle something like this, which puts everybody in a really bad position. And being the president of the New York State Nurses Association, how are you guys advocating to make sure that something like this never occurs again?
Well, we did promote certain legislation that passed, some did not. I think one of the big issues for us also is getting additional revenue. The way taxes are paid in this state and in this nation are outrageous. In New York, we have such disparities in economics. The very super wealthy pay little or nothing in taxes, and there are many initiatives, many legislative proposals that have been put forward, but just don't get any attention. We don't want to fight with education advocates and healthcare advocates and housing advocates over crumbs. We need to make that pie bigger, and that pie can be made bigger by taxing the rich through the pied-à-terre tax, stock transfer tax, things that are actually virtual, won't even touch them, but can finance and fund our communities and deal with the issues, the incredibly challenging issues they face. We have three crises in the nation right now: the corona crisis, the economic crisis, and this has always been a crisis, but is now in the forefront, the crisis about racism in our nation and how it affects people from womb to tomb, from pregnancy to death, post death, it's it's overwhelming, and it has to be dealt with.
And so, just to share with our viewers, I met you on the front lines at Sunday's protest with the Latinx community protesting against Black Lives Matter, and you were there on behalf of the Nurses Association. And you also shared with me that this is kind of reminiscent of an experience that you had, like 20 years ago, and we're still in the same place?
It was 50 years ago.
50, okay. I was trying to be fun.
It was reminiscent of the movement in the 60s where a lot of this stuff sort of came out. It was a big awakening for America, where people were demanding changes. We did get some changes, but unfortunately, fundamentally and substantive changes have not occurred. Maybe some is window dressing, some is real, but in fact, people of color still suffer incredible discrimination, high injury rates, high death rates. On every count, and I think that it's very exciting to see a new generation, much more sophisticated in many ways than I think we were when we were young,
Right.
because of the ability to learn about the world. Out there leading this struggle. It's really exciting. The struggle for racial equity, for equality, the struggle for climate justice, for environmental justice, for economic justice. I just don't want it to die out. I think we have to really support our young people and support the things that we have to do to make this a better world.
I know it was lovely to share that space with such an interracial and intergenerational community, being educated along the way. It was a wonderful tour. And in closing, I want to just please share your words of wisdom on how to move these policies forward, this legislation forward. Like, we need people to vote. We need the census filled out. I mean, please share whatever it is that you feel is going to galvanize the next generation into coming together, but making a difference.
Well, I mean, when it comes to voting, I mean, we support the candidates. We're very much involved in Jamal Bowman's campaign for Congress for the area in which our hospitals are. AOC, all these progressive legislators who are putting forward healthcare for all, a better educational system, supporting public education, not having, have the highest incarceration rate in our nation.
Right.
And also safe staffing in our hospitals, that the hospitals in poor communities should have the same conditions as the hospitals in wealthy communities. At least in healthcare, can't we begin there to have some equity where our patients are treated the same, where they are subject to the best healthcare possible, the best staffing, the best environmental conditions? That's what we're fighting for, and to protect, we have an oath. We all took an oath. It's called the Florence Nightingale Oath, to treat all people the same, regardless of any other factors, whether they have papers or not, whether they're immigrants or not, whether they're documented or not, what they look like, what their income level is. That should be something that should be embraced by all of our society. It happens with voting, it happens with legislation, but I don't think any of this happens without mass mobilization of people. And we've seen that in the last 2 weeks.
Beautiful. Thank you. And thank you for sharing that with our viewers. You guys, once again, that was Judy Sheridan-Gonzalez, advocating healthcare for all. She is the president of the New York State Nurses Association. And if you want more information, you can also visit nysna.org. All right, we have to take a quick break, but when we return, we'll hear about a march for the LGBT community and Black lives. Don't go anywhere.
We know that people are dealing with the health crisis, but there's also a lot of food insecurity.
We're giving out healthy food options, and that's what's key here.
If you're a senior, you have a disability, they'll actually deliver meals to you.
The residents are anxious, they're worried, they're scared, they want to be tested.
When things were happening in our community and we couldn't get the help.
There's almost a presumption of criminality that attaches to your skin color.
The site will prioritize those who are at highest risk in the population.
If you feel symptoms and you'd like to visit one of these COVID-19 testing sites here in the Bronx, you may call the State Health Department's hotline.
Important to note about this site is no reservations are needed. This is a walk-in clinic.
A lot of us are out of work and looking for something to do.
We have the machinery and the skills to make large scales of these masks and gowns.
Take care of your people. It's going to go way further than we actually can understand.
Right now, employees like myself are just adjusting to the new reality.
Reporting from Bronxnet, this is Artist Musah.
everyone. Welcome back to our remote version of Open. So June is Pride Month, and the Reclaim Pride Coalition, known for mobilizing the gay community to come together, is holding its 2020 Queer Liberation March that will focus on Black lives and the issues of economic justice, sexism, police brutality, and that's just to name a few within this country. Joining us to tell us more about this upcoming march, we welcome Reclaim Pride Coalition organizer, co-founder J.W. Walker. Hello, Senor Walker.
Hello, Rhina. Thank you very much for having me on and giving us some space.
It's so fascinating that we are just reliving a certain era, and I use the term fascinating because what is coming into fruition here is the history behind parades even being formed, right? Because they originally began as marches, turned into these festivities, and now have reverted back to being marches.
Exactly. And that was the purpose of the Queer Liberation March. The first one of which was last year, was just a disappointment in the lack of a true political core to the annual Heritage of Pride parade. When it started out as this amazing March for Liberation, had devolved into this super corporate, super police run, over barricaded dance party that lasted for far too long and didn't center any of the major issues that the queer community and all the queer communities in all of our many facets were facing. And that's why we held last year's march, because it needed to be done.
Well, was it 2019 or 2018?
Well, 2018, we were formed. The Reclaim Pride Coalition was formed, but we were still trying to operate within the Heritage of Pride parade. That ended up being just a horrible debacle, the way that the Heritage of Pride parade treated those of us who were really there from an activist standpoint. So we resolved that for the 50th anniversary of Stonewall in 2019, that we would hold our own march. That would be a political march that wouldn't have floats, that wouldn't have police marching with us, that wouldn't have barricades everywhere, and that would have no corporate involvement whatsoever. And that's what we did last year, and we ended up with an estimated 45,000 people participating. So this year, we were going at it again, then COVID hit. And we decided, okay, we'll do something virtual, which is what everybody decided to do when COVID hit.
Right.
But then after Mr. Floyd was murdered in front of all of our eyes, and all of our members that didn't have severe health issues were out every single day marching in the streets with this amazing flashpoint moment of people just demanding justice.
Right.
That, after that first weekend of protests, we all got back together in our little subcommittee meetings and finally our general meeting, and were unanimous that we just had to come out into the street and march, and that we had to center the movement for Black lives and this fight against police brutality, which is one of those places where all queer communities and all Black communities have a great deal of intersection. The fact that we've been under attack by law enforcement for decades and decades.
Well, don't you find it interesting how it's all the communities and then the police militant operations? Because if you think about it, it's kind of everybody and then them. And so the fact that everybody has chosen,
that's really it.
It really is, right? And we just had a guest previous to this segment that was just sharing her knowledge, dropping her knowledge about being involved 50 years ago, and how this is almost like this is history repeating itself as we speak.
It really is. I mean, it's astounding, and it was one of those perfect storm moments, right? Because it was everything I had to sort of work up to this moment. It was almost 3.5 years of fatigue of the idiocy and incompetence of Donald Trump and the resistance that grew in that wake. And then we had this overwhelming health epidemic that locked everybody down and just reinforced all of our distrust in all of our governmental and societal systems, from the healthcare system to the government, etc. And then we had just sort of, data point after data point of the real lives of folks like Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna Taylor, being murdered and being hushed up in the early days of the COVID epidemic, and finally coming to light. And it's almost perfect that they were hushed up in February and March, and that they didn't come to light until May, because then we had that, then we had the Karen explosion, and then we had Mr. Floyd being murdered in front of all of our eyes for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And that was that final straw that broke under all of this weight, and the world exploded, it felt like.
Right. And we've been protesting ever since. And so now here comes this community to come in again, right? Because there was a big protest just this past Sunday. But now this particular protest is going to encompass everything. So what should people expect, and who are you expecting to participate in this protest?
We always want to manage expectations. We're pretty certain that the broader swath of LGBTQ communities are going to participate, in those who don't have concerns about their own health. But we want this march to be as broad as possible. It is the Queer Liberation March. That's the starting point. But we want this to be a march for everyone who believes in justice, who believes in overcoming the systemic oppression that everyone's faced. People aren't talking about the fact that there was a 9-year period that was studied, and there were several hundred instances of women being raped by police officers, and it's that's something that people aren't really talking about. The police system in this country oppresses everyone who isn't a straight, white, Christian male of means. Everyone else is fodder for them.
Right.
And I want everybody out in this march.
Yes. And in addition to that, we want everybody to get out there and vote and have their voices heard, and to fill out their census.
Yes, absolutely. So important, especially in all of our cities.
Right. And so in closing, the details of the march, I know, are going to be on Sunday, June 28th. I know it starts at 1. You're referring everybody to the website for right now, as you're still figuring out exactly how it is that this is going to flow, right?
Exactly. We're still meeting and having consultations with lots of different community groups, led by Black people, both queer groups and groups that aren't explicitly queer. But everything is going to be revealed very shortly in terms of everything that we're doing.
Got it. Well, we thank you for bringing it here to our viewers. We thank you for the work that you're doing. And most importantly, it's really refreshing to just see everybody galvanized to make sure that our voices are heard, united in spite of our differences.
All together now, and hold that line. Thank you so much, Rhina.
Oh, thank you. All right. Once again, you guys, 2020 Queer Liberation March is taking place on Sunday, June 28th, and that's starting at 1. For more information, you can visit reclaimpridegyc.org. We have to take a quick break, but don't go anywhere. We have an artist who's going to share some of his artwork that's related to protest. So don't go anywhere.
We built a media network for you.
BronxNet TV.
Come learn in your new state-of-the-art studios at Lehman College.
At Mercy College.
And coming soon to the South Bronx in the Hub.
Inspire with your stories, culture, history.
Your Bronx on BronxNet.
Engage with us.
Connect with us at your channels and at BronxNet.tv.
Learn, engage, inspire. BronxNet TV.
From the Bronx
to the world.
BronxNet.
Welcome back to Open Remote. Our next guest is an artist from Ghana who uses art as a tool for self-expression, creating awareness and transforming society. His work is known to reflect social justice and the phenomena of globalization. He recently finished his residency with Bronx Art Space, and his work has been featured internationally on CNN and in the Afro-Caribbean Design Festival in London. Today, he's here to talk about his latest work reflecting Black Lives Matter. Please welcome Musah Swallah. Hello, Musah.
Hello. Hi. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well. Thank you for having me on your show. I really appreciate your time.
So you were endearingly referred to as Baba Musah Swallah. Can you elaborate on the term Baba for us?
Yeah. So I inherited the name Musah from my grandfather. So my parents don't call me direct by the name Musah. They call me Baba just to show a respect to my grandfather. So that's the reason why any African that has a name Baba means they're just showing a respect to the grandfather. So my parents don't call me direct Musah, they call me Baba Musah, meaning Father Musah. Yeah, so that's what it means.
I've always wanted to know why some people use Baba. So thank you for that. That short, sweet, and informative African lesson right there. And so I have a question with regards to your work and the reference of globalization or the phenomenon of globalization and what inspires it. Obviously, you have been designing work that is geared towards social consciousness. We are dealing with a major crisis right now with racial inequities, and your work reflects that. I know that we have a beautiful image we're going to show with a young lady with a mask, and then all African figures or African American figures. But what I'm most interested in knowing is the layering of your work and what inspires your storytelling in the style in which you execute.
So for me as an artist, I started by painting on canvas, painting on papers, and so 10 years ago, I decided to move from painting on canvas to wood. And the inspiration behind me painting on wood was one day I went to a fishing community in Ghana, where I went closer to the fishermen and women. I saw them how they were building their boats. So I got inspired how they have a very huge wood that they build their boat from. So I got inspired how people can just cut pieces of wood, join them together, carve some part of it, cut some part of it, paint some part, and also build a boat out of it. So I was so inspired. So that's where I got my idea of painting on wood. So me as an artist, I feel like, okay, I can also do something like what they are doing. So when I came back to my studio, I gathered some wood, which I started working on. So I was carving on wood. So I carved some part of the wood, I applied paint, and also I put on some texture, like some fabric,
right.
some metals, some nails, some plastic, and some bottle covers. So that's how I started doing my work. So when you see my painting physical, you can feel the layers, and when you touch it, you can feel the textures as well. So that's how I do my work.
Oh, so it's wonderful. So you're one of those artists that allows people to touch the paintings when it's on exhibition?
Yeah, I mean,
when it's being exhibited?
Yeah, I don't have a problem, because anytime people come to shows that my work is being exhibited, they just want to touch it. They want to feel what are some of the materials I use. Are they real, or I just paint them? So most people, anytime they come to my show, they just want to touch it. I don't have a problem with that. Yeah.
So now let's talk about your form of using this as a means of protesting and being your social awareness voice.
So the painting behind me, I painted this painting 3 years ago when I arrived in the United States. A couple of friends of mine took me to the Women's March, which happened 3 years ago. So that's where I got the idea, and that was my first time to see a very huge crowd of people protesting and marching and having their sign, the placards, and everything just to get their voice out there. So I got an idea, and also inspired by how I saw all these ladies coming out to protest for calling out for justice in the system. So me as an artist, I feel like, okay, what I can do is also to display.
Protest.
Yeah, and also protest my work through my paintings. So
Right.
that's how I feel like also like journalists are doing their best reporting about what is going on around the world, protesting in their own way. For me as an artist, I also feel like I need to do something. So that's how I also started incorporating this kind of ideas and images in my artwork.
And so in this particular time capsule that we're living, how has it impacted your work? Because again, I noticed that you have a lot of gold in your work. And so I just wondered, like, what is it that's going through your mind that allows you to, yes, relay this message of this particular era, of this particular time period, but yet give it a sense of, I want to say hope. Like there's something in it that elevates and presents this regal outcome.
Yeah. So for me as an artist, I think mural is one of the biggest platform that artists can also like display their work out there to the public. Most people don't have the time or maybe the opportunity to go into people's studio in terms of the kind of work that they are producing. So for me as an artist, I feel like making murals in public in our own city is one of the easiest ways so that people can also feel and see how artists are working. Some people, they don't like respect the kind of work that artists do in order to create a piece. So I use this platform, especially like when I was doing this mural, I was making a live video and people were like, wow, we didn't know that you guys put a lot of time and a lot of energy in producing your work. So
are we referencing the mural with the half the hands and
yeah, the mural with the hand.
eye?
Yeah, the mural I did with a hand was a recent mural that I did with a friend of mine from El Salvador. So I was just working on, and I was like, okay, I need to make this bigger so that people can see what I was trying to portray. So yes, we artists, we also have a say, and the way we can have a say to the general public or to the people on the bigger platform is to also use our arts to show our protest. So that was one of the reasons behind some of the works that I started about protesting about Black Lives Matters and also about the social injustice and also about women in general who are vulnerable, especially the young women who are very vulnerable in the society. So that's one of the reasons why I started moving towards this kind of direction.
Beautiful, with the spiritual component, I may add. So before we go, where can people go and see this mural that has been created?
Yeah, so I visited my wife in Washington, D.C., and I had the opportunity to create this painting in Washington, D.C. So at this moment, I still have the painting, and other two people also commissioned me after I finished this mural. So I'm still here in Washington, D.C., where I'm also going to create another 2 different murals before I return back to the Bronx. Yeah.
Nice. Well, we look forward to when you get back to us and bring it back home. All right, Musah?
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, good for you. I'm glad you're out there making your voice heard in D.C. They certainly need to listen.
Yeah. That's where the big men and women are here. So I mean, I'm happy I'm doing this in Washington, D.C. so they can see that we our life really matters. Yeah.
Well, thank you. And thank you for bringing it here to our viewers. Once again, you guys, for more on Musah Swallah and his artwork, you can check out his Instagram at b.musah. That's M-U-S-A-H. All right, don't go anywhere. Bobby C's Weekly Sports Roundup is coming up next.
Without question, one of the most colorful drivers in the history of the Indianapolis 500 and one of the most successful drivers too, three-time Indy 500 winner, Bobby Unser with us today. Uncle Bobby live from Unserville and Albuquerque, New Mexico. Bobby, how's it going? How's life?
It's nice to talk with you guys. You know, I haven't talked to anybody from New York in ages. I think it's neat.
Oh, it's great to see you. You're such a legend, and it's a great opportunity to be able to talk racing and your career. You win the Indianapolis 500 three times with three different teams and in three different decades, the first man to do that. So to me, it begs the question, Bobby, is the Indianapolis 500, is it fair to say that it might be the most difficult race to win?
That's just true to form. I mean, but it also makes it a super place to have won a race at. Racing is, when it gets up to the size of Indy 500, it's a butt kicker, you know. I mean, things are really going. And I mean, everybody, before I won it my first time, I wanted to win it so bad it was terrible. And then all of a sudden, God dang it, I had to win it my second time, and then the third. And it just became way more important. In other words, it doesn't die off, it doesn't lose the zippy-doo. If you'd like it to, it just doesn't do it. Winning the Indy 500 every time will be the best time.
I've heard you say before that there are so many drivers that think they made the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but in reality, IMS made them. I think that's a great line because, again, to think back to your victories, 1968, 1975, and 1981, all three of them so very different, again, with all three different teams.
Yes, it did, and that just, I think, more of an indication of what I mentioned a while ago, how important that the win in Indianapolis really is. In other words, you can win it once, big deal. Twice, big deal. Three times, God, they think that guy's getting serious, you know?
All three of those victories, one of which was shortened by, of course, by the rain. Another one you had some, gearbox trouble, and then, of course, the controversy in 1981. So all three of them a little bit different. You might even be able to say that you won the race twice in 1981.
Well, I technically did, but that's all right. I'm going to get them all, you know. I mean, yeah, when it comes to winning the race, that little deal with Mario was a sad deal because Mario and I were really good friends. And so we look at that and we say, wow, we've lost a friendship and then got it back. So I think that's really good. That was really good.
Now, I know, of course, and I think everyone knows, the Unser family is basically a legacy of speed and an empire of speed, and to see your family have so much success through the generations. And basically, it starts not only with your older brother, but, obviously your younger brother and even your son and so many racers in the family. But I thought it was interesting that Jerry Jr., of course, passes away at Indianapolis. And did you ever kind of think to yourself, like maybe racing isn't a good idea after your brother passes away, especially at Indy?
Many people have asked either Al or I the same thing. And it just isn't, it isn't a problem. Never has been a problem. It's not an easy thing to get by for sure, but it just isn't a serious problem. You got to think that Jerry really wanted to race, and getting himself killed, that wasn't such a big deal to him. He had to race, and he did a hell of a good job on it. But you can't do a good job all the time when you're trying to do something like that, because it's a dangerous thing to be in.
You know, since racing, of course, is a family tradition, what was it like to see your son follow in your footsteps at Pikes Peak and also at Indy, and to even watch him win the hill climb 9 times? What kind of feeling was that?
That was the big ringer. You know, Pikes Peak, it always has been our big ringer. Always been our place to go, our thing to really look at. And thank God we've been able to make that happen. And there was lots of times when it didn't look like it was going to happen, but then we just turned around and bucked a little harder and made it happen. And it was nice. We enjoyed it. And I'm still going to enjoy it. Somehow or another, one of the answers are going to jump in there and make a better racing life again.
I think of the competition, of course, and the rivalry between you and your brother, and I know there's so much love there, but I was curious if you felt that the competition and the rivalry might have made both of you better, because he goes on, too, to win Indianapolis 500 4 times.
No question about that. But, he could have probably won the thing 6 times, 10 times. I mean, the good Lord is the one who's going to determine how many times you win this thing, you know. It isn't easy to win at all. So therefore you think, well, God dang it, what am I going to do? Well, you're going to do nothing, or you're going to keep working hard at it so you can do better. And better means winning, no question about it. And winning is always going to be hard. There's no question about it. You get to going a little bit down the road there, and you stop and you say, holy Moses, I had a chance of winning it. And you do. Good Lord takes care of the rest of it.
Of course. So obviously, of course, you become a legend at Indianapolis, but again, Pikes Peak Hill Climb is arguably the most dangerous race of them all, and you win it 7 times in 8 years, 13 times in all. What was the trick for you having success there, and also the family having success there?
The whole trick to that thing was want. You want to win. You want to do something. And when you want to bad enough, you're going to do it. But you got to have a little want there. You can't just say, I wish. Wishing he would hack it. I don't think, you see. Might hack it sometime, but I doubt it, you know.
And racing for you, that passion continued even after you decided to walk away from IMS after the 81 victory, because you were 59 years old when you set a new land speed record at the Bonneville Salt Flats. I mean, unbelievable, 223.709 miles per hour, basically 224 miles per hour. How in the world did you pull that off at 59 years old?
You've got it all figured out. That's amazing. Totally is amazing that you've done all that. You had to do an awful lot of it yourself, because I was there too, you know.
Of course. I'm a big fan as well. I mean, so it's not only being a journalist and an interviewer here, but a big fan of your career, Bobby.
That's nice. In other words, it's nice that anybody gets into it, loves it. If you like racing, you gotta like me. If you like me, you gotta like racing. I mean, it just all goes together. Racing is it. Automobile racing has been with us a long time. And I really do believe somebody like yourself, you know what it's like. You enjoy it. You like it. You want to keep on liking it. That's what people are. Yeah. That's the way people are, though. That's the way I am. There had to be a time when maybe I should have got my nose out of the auto racing and tried something else for a while, but no, I don't really want to, you know.
That was part 1 of our interview with 3-time Indianapolis 500 winner Bobby Unser. Tune in Monday for part 2.
everyone. Welcome back. Our last guest is a true inspiration. She is a dancer that didn't allow her scoliosis diagnosis to stop her from achieving her dream as a professional dancer. Prior to the pandemic stay-at-home order, she was touring with the Lion King. She created the Paige Fraser Foundation to support others to live out their dream to dance. And here now to discuss her campaign, Bent But Not Broken, in honor of Scoliosis Awareness Month, please welcome Paige Fraser. Hello, Paige.
Hi, Rhina.
So good to see you.
You too.
And you are hailing from?
I am currently in Chicago in quarantine, like the rest of us.
And so, why Chicago? Why are you in Chicago?
Yes, so I originally from the Bronx. I moved to Chicago about 7 years ago to dance with a company out here, Visceral Dance Chicago, which I danced with them for 6 seasons. I was a founding dancer in that company. And then my phone rang with my dream job, The Lion King. I couldn't believe it. After auditioning maybe 6 or 7 times, I finally was offered a position, and I packed my bags last August and went on tour.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Yes.
That's exciting.
Such a dream come true, to be a part of a show that has such a legacy and a story that is so timeless that young kids and also adults can relate to, and that also celebrates Black and brown people.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, while it was an empowering experience for a moment, and you're on pause, you're just on pause.
Yes.
In the meantime, you continue to pay it forward. Let's talk about your campaign. Let's talk about what has kept you moving. You are a true inspiration, and the fact that now you're sprinkling this over to enroll other people who have been diagnosed, who are also dancers, and just being coming in with the approach of unlimitedness, right? So because let's say being diagnosed or something like that, one would assume that the first thing that pops into your head is that, oh, now I'm limited.
Right. Yeah. And, that's exactly the mission of the Paige Fraser Foundation. We were founded in 2017. And, I wanted to create a platform for dancers like myself. When I was diagnosed with scoliosis at the age of 13, I felt very alone. I luckily had the support of family, and, we were able to find other resources, non-surgical options that allowed me to continue to train and do what I love, which is dance. And dance is where I feel free, and the Paige Fraser Foundation, we have a program called Dance is Healing that creates a safe space for dancers with or without disabilities. And it happens annually. Our first year was at Mind Builders in the Bronx, which was very important to me as someone born and raised in the Bronx. I wanted to give back to my community in that way. And our second year was held at Alvin Ailey, which is also holds a special place in my heart because that's where I continued my training, and also where I received my first professional job with the Ailey 2, the second company to Alvin Ailey. So yes, through the Paige Fraser Foundation and our program Dance is Healing, we want to create a safe space, have dancers of all types, whether they have a spinal condition or not, make it, a more inclusive environment for dancers like myself, and, offering these resources to the community for free. And, that is our mission right now. During the pandemic, I was also inspired to create another program, the Spine Series, which right now is done virtually. And this series, I bring teachers and friends and colleagues that are skilled and trained in spinal health, breathing exercises, just simple things that can be taught obviously through Zoom or Instagram Live, and allow people that are dealing with scoliosis or any kind of ailment or pain that they can do in the comfort of their own home. So yes, the spine series is still in development right now, but that is really what I wanted it to provide for people right now, as we are not able to do what we normally do.
Right.
Getting a massage or going to Pilates. I wanted to offer these classes virtually for the community as well.
That's wonderful. Please do share any times or a website that people can go to, because trust me, the spine and back injuries are a huge ailment that exists within a lot of people that may not even be dancers, but can definitely benefit from it.
Yes, and also the importance of breathing too, and taking a pause, during this time, like so important to check your breathing. And I've noticed with having scoliosis, it causes tightness and stiffness in the body, and it's very, very important to breathe into those areas so that you can alleviate pain. So that's why the spine series is so special to me. And with June being Scoliosis Awareness Month, I wanted to do something a little different this year. And I created a film. I'm the creative director of my first film, Bent But Not Broken. And it features myself as well as two other professional dancers, Bekan Sisk, who dances with Ballet West. She is a ballerina. And Jacqueline Green, who dances in Alvin Ailey American Dance Theater. And with this, we wanted to, share our stories, share our journeys, inspire others, especially younger dancers who are going through this challenging time with scoliosis or having to undergo surgery. And as you see throughout the film, I also have a beautiful montage of dancers from all over the world, of all different ages, that also are scoliosis warriors.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for your commitment to bringing awareness to scoliosis, and also for being a warrior in overcoming any obstacles that may have presented themselves. I understand you're going to be sharing a little performance for us. So we're going to take a quick break. All right. And we're going to take a quick break. But when we return, Paige, she's going to perform a special dance for us. So don't go anywhere. Welcome back. It's now time for this week's Open Artist Spotlight. Here now to perform a special piece titled Dancing in Quarantine, please welcome Paige Fraser. So that was a Paige Fraser's Dancing in Quarantine. Please make sure to check out Paige's Bent But Not Broken campaign on YouTube/Paige Fraser. And you can follow her on Instagram at Loving This Page. That is our show today, mi gente. Thanks to all our guests for coming through, and to you, our viewers, for tuning in. If you missed any part of the show, you can check out the Recablecast tonight and 24 hours a day at BronxNet.tv. In honor of today being Juneteenth, BronxNet presents Bronx Live Ebony Ecumenical Ensemble celebrating its 41st anniversary with Songs of the Spirit at 9:30 p.m. on Channel 6733. I'm Rhina Valentin, and from all of us here at Open, may the universe provide paz, prosperity, y amor. Power to the people.